Thank you. All right, let's get the ball rolling for today's panel sessions. So again, welcoming our moderator, Dr. Ayomi Dita Rarasati, the Assistant Professor of the Department of Civil Engineering from the Faculty of Engineering of the Universitas Indonesia. So, hi, Dr. Ayomi.
Hi, Timmy. It's good to see you here.
Good to
And
see
it's good to see you, all the participants in this afternoon.
Okay, so let's get this started.
Yes. Oops.
Okay, so sorry about that. So from here we can start with our first presenter.
Yes. So our first presenter will be Miss Kyukyutin.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I really can present. Now should I share my screen?
Yes. If
Okay. You cannot just screen share while the other participant is sharing. So now I try to share my screen first.
could you
try sharing your screen now?
You can share your screen now.
Yes, ready to share.
So while Ms. Kyukyutin preparing for the slideshow,
yes.
The paper will titled From Energy to Agriculture, a comprehensive review of heat waves in Southeast Asia. Ms. Kyukyutin here with Wirah Tawi Preda from
Yes.
Environmental Management, Prince of Songkla University.
Yes. Actually, I'm facing the some technical error here. I couldn't find my slide. What the reasons behind this?
So usually just share the windows, or can you just share the screen?
Yes. Yes. Could you please see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah. Thank you so much.
You can just click the share screen now.
Yes.
And also the slideshow.
Yes, slideshows. So shares. Yes, have been shared is. Everyone can see my slide now.
Probably there is a delay because we still see your PowerPoint, not the slideshow.
Is it okay to see this?
Yes, now it's already slideshow.
Yes. So, okay.
Okay, so please have your presentation.
Yes.
After the presentation, probably there will be just one question, Timmy, in regards for the time after the presentation, we'll have the Q&A.
Yes. Okay. Good afternoon. I'm very pleased to meet you all. What I to do in the presentation is from energy to agriculture, a comprehensive review of the heat wave in the Southeast Asia. So we have been familiar about the heat waves. Okay, we have been familiar about the heat waves. Actually, temperature is about the average high temperature. We could be know that this is the heat wave it can be solved. The heat wave is can less than the 2 day at least. So amendments are we heat wave impact in the especially in the Southeast Asia countries. Southeast Asia, we already know that comprises the 11 countries with more than 500 million people. Actually, we climate modulated by Asia-Australia Moses systems and the ENSO is the more critical factors influencing the precipitation temperature over the Southeast Asia extremity events. During these years, even for it the highest temperature impacts around the Southeast Asia country, especially impacts in Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand, Myanmar, and Vietnam are suffering a lot about the hot temperatures. So let's going to be talk about the impacts of the heat temperature. What we going to be happen? Increase the temperature. We can be firstly suffer the drought and floods, and can see decrease in the herds, and finally environmental degradations, food security. And then in the other hand, direct impacts, we can be suffer more heat wave occurrence, decrease in productivity, education and learnings, and also risks of the foodborne illness. Or not only this, but also we can be suffer from impact on the heat, health systems, especially health-related illness, and thus indirect impact. We're going to be suffered about the air and water pollution, and then respiratory disease, and then finally population displacement. Not only this, vulnerable populations affected people by the children, low-income groups, and homeless people with the outside workers, and disabled and differently abled people. So let's going to talk about, if we're going to be talk about the heat wave center, impact, the more impact affects about the energy sectors. If energy sector can be, impact heat, we have been suffer with the heat rate. We going to be faced with the increased energy demands, and then we have to need the renewable energy challenges. So increased energy demands, we need to be consider about the cooling requirement, and then straight on the power grids. On the other hand, renewable energy challenges, should we consider about the solar and wind energy efficiency? Especially in the South Asia country, Thailand also suffer at the heat rate at the citizens heavily on the air conditioning, so that's why they had to use the power infrastructures a lot. Indonesia also had to suffer the energy demands and also challenges in the energy sector. Vietnam and Philippines also had to face the energy sector, but they trying to reinvest in the liquefied natural gas terminal to adapt the depreciations of the domestic space. And then our agriculture sector also, we're going to be see the Scotty and water resource. The first one is we talk about the Scotties. It's where we're going to suffer the heat stress on the costs and changes in planting and harvesting system. On the other hand, water resources increase the irrigation needs and water security issues. Following about these issues, Indonesia rice prices increased 60% because of the dry waters, and Vietnam also suffer the low water levels, kill the 20 tons of the fish. And also Thailand's farmers had facing the financial insecurities. So this is a case story about beyond the Southeast Asia, India and Pakistan have been suffer a lot heat rate in 2023. Temperature is soaring above the 50 degrees Celsius. That's why cost failure, water shortage, mortality rate increases. But the government early warning system promote the heat-resistant capability to mitigate the impact. Thailand faced the 2023 case study research. They do the research about including the history and dehydration, particularly among the vulnerable populations. The government's public awareness campaign, heat safety, and increase the availability of cooling centers, and enhance the urban planning to reduce the heat island effect. BNS also do the case study about the right protection. This is they wanna be really the food shortage and economic losses. Efforts include the development of his resistant right quality, improve the irrigation system policy farmer during the extreme weather impacts. So here is mitigation and adaptation. So we're going to talk about the heat rate. It is important for the government, community, individual to implement effective mitigations and adaptation strategy. Firstly, we can going to be consider rising awareness and education, increase the public health preparedness, sustainable water management, strengthen climate resilience, challenges, and partnerships. So as we talk about the energy sector, we can be consider about the mitigation strategies. The first one is the renewable energy resource and energy efficiency. So renewable energy store, if we talk about this, we shouldn't neglect about the solar and wind power because to reduce the reliance on the fossil fuels, decrease the greenhouse gas emissions. And also the second one is hydropower because feasible to provide the stable and renewable energy resources. Energy efficiency, we have to think about the smart grid because smart grid technology, energy distribution and reduce losses, energy efficient applicants to lower the overall energy consumptions. So adaptation strategy, we're going to be consider the infrastructure resilience and then demand management. Under the infrastructure, upgrading the power grid because increase the demand during the heat waves. Cooling centers to provide the relief during the extreme heat wave and also under the demand management, peak load management to manage the peak electricity load, and we need to be public awareness or educations. How about the agriculture sector? Mitigation strategies we could be consider about the sustainable farming practice as the agroforestry, organic farming, agroforestry, enhance the carbon sequestration and provide the shade. Organic farming to lower the greenhouse gas emission. Soil management also should be considered here. The conservation studies to improve the soil health and carbon storage, cover the costs, enhance its organic matter contents. How about the adaptation strategies, technological innovations, early warming diversifications? Heat-resistant coat variety should be considered the higher temperature. Improved irrigation techniques, we shouldn't neglect because rich irrigation, early warming systems such as the climate forecasting, disaster preparedness, and because to provide to cover the early warmings or the heat wave. Diversifications, cost diversification slightly through diversification because to reduce the risk or the total cost failures. So energy major impact on the energy and agriculture, increased demand for cooling, strain on the power grid, challenges for renewable energy source. And then agriculture sector also challenges about the increased irrigation needs and water security issues. Importance of the adaptations and resilience. The proving is the crucible to mitigate the advanced energy and agriculture sector can help community better cope with the extreme heat events. So, predictions for the future heat waves to begin the more frequent, intense, lower long-lasting due to the climate change, especially like the Southeast Asia experience more severe event and proactive measurements. Technology innovation also should be considered investing in heat-resistant cold-ability, efficient irrigation system, renewable energy technology, policy measurements also should be considered for in these sectors. So to represent this is if we meet the, it can we reduce the heat waves by doing by reducing human activity, so we can meet the sustainable development goal. The first one is the zero hungers, because our heat wave can significantly impact the agriculture, affecting the food security and nutrition. The second one is extreme heat poses the health risk, including the heat stroke and overheat-related illness, because we meet the Sustainable Development Goal 3. Sustainable Goal 6 is the heat with the celebrate water security, affecting the access to clean water. So number 7, affordable and clean energy. Yes, energy demand often spikes during heat wave, highlighting the need for sustainable energy solutions. Number sustainable development goal climate action. Adopting the root cause of climate change is essential to mitigation the frequency and severity of the heat wave. Here is the sun references used in the presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Everyone, if there is any questions that you want to ask to Ms. Tin, you can raise your hand, or probably you can just type your question in the chat room. we still don't have any question, probably Timmy, can I go further for the second presenter first? Thank you, Ms. Kyukyutin. So we will continue to our next presenter, Mr. Ricardo Bagarinao.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Let me just share my screen.
Yes, thank you. So while Mr. Bagarinao is try to present his presenter. So the title is The Rewilding Cities Through Home Garden Agroforestry Practices and Prospects. So Ricardo, you have 10 minutes to present your presentation, and I will put probably some reaction when the time is due, Ricardo.
Okay, thank you, Doc Ayomi. Okay, again, good afternoon, everyone. First, I wish to thank AUN-EEC for the opportunity to share some thoughts and information about the potential role of home garden agroforestry as a way to rewild our cities. Okay, so that's I have entitled my presentation this afternoon as Rewilding Cities Through Home Garden Agroforestry Practices and Prospects. Okay, so I am Ricardo T. Bagarino, a full-time faculty member of the Faculty of Education, University of the Philippines Open University. I would be focusing on these three subtopics for my presentation this afternoon. I would be sharing with you the idea of home garden agroforestry as defined by existing literature. Then I will present result of a sample study that I did on home garden agroforestry located in an exclusive subdivision in Laguna province and our HJs, especially in relation to rewilding our urban areas. As a concept, HJs are considered as land use systems with deliberate management of multipurpose assembly of trees and shrubs, according to Bisoysa in 2022. Deliberate because the owner, not the nature, will decide as to what would be the components of the garden as well as the kind of management that they will employ in maintaining it. On the other hand, Galhina et al. In 2013 considered HJAs as important elements of the local food systems that can enhance household food nutrition and food security. The ability of HJs to supply fresh and nutritional food can help in as well as their immediate local communities. In Africa and Asia, for example, home gardens were used as major sources for micronutrients, especially for children suffering from vitamins and minerals deficiency. Ayanotti et al. In 2009 had reported that HJ's food production programs in countries where the problem is severe were launched to assist households in addressing vitamin A deficiency. They are also regarded as agroforest systems located close to human dwellings, according to Howe and Hamilton in 2009, and integrated into family life as of 2020. Thus, in terms of management and receptivity of people in establishing such a system would not be difficult. And in fact, it has an important implication on the rewilding of our cities. Since they are close to the heart of the people, putting more and more HJs in urban areas, I just thought that have would not be much of a problem because again, HJs are close to the heart of the people. Structurally, HJs usually consist of two components, the vertical and horizontal structure. And these components may vary from place to place depending on the decision of the owner as well as on their needs and practices. The vertical structure usually reflects the complexity of the garden. Sometimes it may have several layers, while the horizontal structure reflects the placement of plant species within the garden relative to the owner's house. For instance, In a study conducted by Gaseni and Gaseni in 1999 in Thailand, they observed that most of the HJs in their study area have only four vertical layers, namely the emergent layer, canopy, understory, and ground cover. Away and Hamilton in 2009 reported that this layering is like the dried pterocarp forest ecosystem in the area, except that they are lower in height. The emergent layer, for instance, consists mainly of coconut, bamboo, and mango, which stand about 15 meters or more, while langka, which stands between 10 to 15 meters, form the canopy layer. The understory, standing from 5 to 10 meters, consists of atis and chico, while the ground cover consists of shrubs and grasses. On the other hand, Asfov et al. In 2015, in their study in Ethiopia, observed that the horizontal structure of each jays in the area consists of herbaceous zones, which are located near the house of the owner, shade and fruit tree zone, and woody zone in the middle, and border zone, which forms a live fence of the HJA. We conducted a sample study, an exploratory study actually, in one of the exclusive subdivision in the Laguna province, and our focus of the study is to determine the bird species recruited by HJ and to identify the ecological services provided by this HJ to the bird species observed in the area. And we used photo documentation as our method of data collection to avoid stressing these animals. And we did the data collection for 6 months and we used internet-based resources for the identification of these species. Okay. So in terms of plant composition of the HJ, we recorded at least 15 plant species found in the garden, and they included the following, no? Atis, guava, chico, mango, and some ornamental plants. Okay. And in terms of the structure, we were able to observe bird species layer to the canopy and back. And however, we observe two species of these birds moving from the understory to the canopy and back, that of the olive back sunbird and the yellow bulbul. Okay, so they're moving from the understory to the canopy and back, where they fed on the plants either from fruits or nectar of the flowers of the plants in these layers. Okay, so I have here some of the pictures of those birds that we observed in the HJA. So we have the black nape oriole or kilyawan in Filipino. We have the red-killed flower pecker, Asian glossy, starling olive-back sunbird, gret. We have the Eurasian tree sparrow, turtle dove, and so on and so forth. So these are some of the birds, no, that we observe in the HJA. And that HJA somehow provided at least four ecological services, no, to these birds. And specifically, it provided a place for them where they can rest, they can feed, no, nest, and mate. Okay. With all these observations, we identified at least three prospects for HJs. No? First one, HJs can be a multifunctional system that can effectively support plant and animal diversity conservation and or ecosystem services restoration and maintenance. A multifunctional system because they can provide support to the diversity conservation, while at the same time they can also be used as part of the food security of the household. And it just needs to have the decision of the household as to what species they're going to plant in the garden. Okay. Second, HJs can also serve as models for the potential symbiosis between nature and human-oriented objectives, especially in human-dominated ecosystems such as centers or cities. These objectives are usually in conflict with each other and most of the time are not compatible, especially when development is being prioritized. The presence, however, of diverse plant species that range from trees to herbs in each J's can break at least the war between these conflicting objectives. And lastly, HJs are prospective reservoir or storage of important genetic resources of plants, as being indicated with the sample study. As City et al. In 2022 had indicated, forest destruction and deforestation are continually becoming a global concern, especially with the intensification of climate change and biodiversity loss. And most of the remnant species are now being confined to smaller areas, which may be affected by the changing climate. Thus, HJs can be seen as important repository areas for the genetic resources of important plant species. Not only that they sustain the household food consumption and income generation, HJs can potentially play a vital role in conserving plant genetic resources such as fruit trees, nut trees, medicinal plants, and other crop and crop wild relatives. No? Furthermore, the tree species cultivated in HJs can sustain genetic diversity in addition to trees found in remnant forests. And if several, can just imagine, if several HJ systems are developed in urban areas, it is possible that more and more genetic resources of tree species will be conserved. Okay. So in closing, I believe that the multifunctionality of HJs can be tapped to address the goal of rewilding our system can be harnessed for the conservation of species, especially in biocultural landscapes. The ability of HJs to allow the coexistence as well as the symbiotic relationship between nature-oriented and human-oriented objectives in human-dominated landscapes can make them good system for plant diversity conservation and maybe sustainable development. Okay, so here are my references. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the presentation. So, based on your observation, there are many plants that actually can be planted in our home as our home garden, right?
Yeah.
So, we have a comment in our chat room from Miss Gina. Actually, when we begin to plant, animals move great green. And is there any questions? Thank you. So is there any questions from our participants here? Not yet? So probably, Timmy, we still probably our participants still have to think about the question. So I will ask questions to our presenters probably later on at the end of the session. So probably we will continue to our third presenters, Timmy. Okay. So may I ask Miss Jacqueline, please?
Hi, everyone.
Hello. Good afternoon.
I'm just gonna share my screen. I hope it's gonna work.
Okay. So, Jacqueline, please, is from Department of Zoology, University of Otago, and the title for the paper is the New Zealand Biodiversity Factor Residential, a rapid approach to scoring the relative biodiversity value of urban residential developments. So 10 minutes to present your paper. So probably if you see my screen that there are many reactions, it means that your time is up. So you have to speed up your presentation. So please, it's your time, Jacqueline.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. My name is Jackie. I'm a PhD ecology candidate at the University of Otago in Dunedin, New Zealand. My supervisor is Professor Yolanda van Heesek. So today I will present the New Zealand Biodiversity Factor, a tool to rapidly score the relative biodiversity value of urban residential developments. The tool was created as part of the People, Cities and Nature initiative, which has the goal to restore indigenous nature in urban environments here in New Zealand. And I am part of the residential design for biodiversity team, which consists of Danielle, Chris, Claire, Maybert, and my supervisor, Yolanda. Just a short introduction. As you probably all know, over 50% of the human population are residing in cities. That number is set to increase, and therefore these urban areas have to expand, process known as urbanization. And that has detrimental effects on our biodiversity. In New Zealand, the number of the urban population is quite high. It lies at about 86%. And in New Zealand specifically, being an island nation, sorry, my slides aren't, here we go. Being an island nation, it is really important to think specifically of native biodiversity. We have a lot of exotic species, both flora and fauna, and together with the increasing housing demand and therefore landscape fragmentation, that causes a lot of negative effects on our precious ecosystem. A lot of conservation work is being done, but mostly in natural areas, not urban areas. But urban areas should be seen as viable habitat patches. Even urban areas, can lead to really great ecosystem services. We require biodiversity for ecosystem services for our survival, and obviously they lead to mental and physical well-being. Just a brief overview, I briefly go into the policies in New Zealand to then tell you about the creation of the tool, how the assessment process works, and a short case study. So in New Zealand, there are biodiversity policies, but they mostly include the identification of significant natural areas. There are no objectives at all that relate to promoting biodiversity in urban developments, and restoring urban habitats in residential developments is not considered. And therefore, we have a lot of subdivisions that end up looking like this. So there's a lot of non-permeable space, so a lot of grey landscaping. And the green areas that do exist, they do lack variety, both in terms of the species that are chosen, but also in terms of the structure, which we just heard is really important. And private gardens often have more exotic than native species. So there's no guidance and there's no incentive for urban developers. We do know that residential areas cover a really high proportion of the cityscape, and therefore they have the potential to make a significant contribution to biodiversity. So when we created the NZBF, we first looked at tools to incentivize urban. That was created by my supervisor. It takes into account how much permeable versus impermeable space there is on private properties, what kind of vegetation is planted, what wildlife enhancement strategies take place to give an overall score. But we took it a step further, and we can now rate the biodiversity value of urban subdivisions. So the creation of the tool is based on extensive literature review, knowledge exchange, and the review of existing green factor tools. Once we created the tool, underwent a weighting process with a bunch of experts to apply weights to the categories chosen. I will go into that in more detail. So we looked at biodiversity sensitive urban design principles. I'm not sure if you're aware of them, but mainly that is to maintain, introduce habitat, to facilitate dispersal, to minimize threats and anthropogenic disturbances, facilitate natural ecological processes, and improve the potential for positive human-nature connections. And therefore, we came up with 3 categories: permeable area extent, street layout, and vegetation. And experts from entomology, geography, they gave points to these categories and their characteristics, so we can come up with a weighting. And the weighting process confirmed that indeed vegetation was deemed the most important to biodiversity enhancement, followed by the permeable area extent and the street layout. The vegetation section has a total of 28 vegetation characteristics. A lot of them are divided up into native versus exotic vegetation in the different height categories. And unsurprisingly, native vegetation came out as the more important to biodiversity conservation when compared to exotic vegetation. Once all the data is entered into the Excel-based tool, the assessor can find out how well they did on the biodiversity factor scale. So we have speedometer charts that represent the least to best possible score distribution, but also a summary of results and the overall score. The tool is designed to also educate urban planning and design professionals on how to incorporate biodiversity. I know you can't read that, but we go into that in more detail. So once all data is entered, there will be tailored recommendations that are spit out by the tool to tell the assessor on how to best increase biodiversity. In terms of the assessment, the first step is to look at how much of the area is permeable versus not installed. Are they fitted with shieldings in place? Is the sea strategies in place? Are bicycle lanes installed, and so on? And then the third category, the vegetation category, looks at all the vegetation characteristics listed, and the assessor is asked to measure all the vegetation present and enter the amount in meters. I just take you through a short case study. It's on the North Island in New Zealand, Silo subdivision in Auckland. So before it was built, it used to be an orchard, as you can see on the screen. A lot of it was fruit orchard, a lot of it, and then we have some private homes. And the green area on the biodiversity factor scale, it scored 61.7 points. And street layout was received 4 points because there were no streets and therefore no fragmentation present. However, what followed was a subdivision with mostly non-permeable space. And therefore, the overall score dropped quite to 38.7. So as you can see on the biodiversity factor scale, the score, but also definitely in the vegetation section. They did well with the street layout section because they chose the right lights and traffic calming strategy. So the recommendations for that subdivision, for example, would be, okay, it's great you planted a lot of native vegetation over exotic vegetation, but most of it is actually above 2 meters in height. So it would be really good to get the layers going to create habitat. Also, lawns are kept below 10 centimeters. Make sure to increase lawn height, or even better, replace the lawn with native ground-dwelling plants. There are lots of details about how to increase biodiversity in private gardens. It goes into detail about wildlife enhancement strategies, but also all the gardens didn't have a lot of vegetation in them, so the clustering score could be improved and so on. The tool can also be used for developers to run different scenarios. For example, the same subdivision, the same site could look like something like this, where you have no streets, but you have communal car parks, you have a lot of native vegetation, you have shared pathways between homes to increase the, human-nature connection and sense of place. And something like that, again, would score a lot higher, would score about a 70. So the tool is designed to be during all design stages of a subdivision, no matter if it has been already built or if it's in the build process. And overall, we found that it's reliably indicative of the developed biodiversity in New Zealand. It can indeed be applied nationally and at all ages completion. And the creation was guided by the biodiversity-sensitive urban design principles. It has been excessively peer-reviewed and as proof of concept confirmed. So a closing remark is that, to provide guidance on how to promote biodiversity, we believe has never been more important through urban design. And if we put native biodiversity first, during urban densification projects, we can make sure that we design for vibrant communities in which native species can thrive alongside us now and alongside our future generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline. It's on time. 10 minutes. Oh, we have a question from Bird Window Strike PH in our chat room. So thanks for sharing about your urban biodiversity tool. Has this tool been tested with residents and how was the reaction to it?
So the tool is designed, the NZBF is designed to be used by design professionals like urban development, professionals that actually create these subdivisions. We are currently in contact with a few of them that have used the tool already to make their subdivisions more biodiverse. So yeah, they're really keen to use this, which is great. Garden Star has been used by urban dwellers, and yeah, they really enjoyed seeing what their score is like and how they can improve. So we believe that having a tool like that will not only aid in, creating better outcomes for nature, but also increase the human-nature connection in the long run.
Okay. Bird window. Ha.
Yeah.
Thank you. And people
Yeah.
wanted to share. So probably try to test the tools in Universitas Indonesia, Jacqueline, probably.
Great. Actually, the Garden Star tool can be downloaded on our website. It can Garden Star. You can do so. You can
okay.
test it at home.
Oh, it's very good, Jacqueline. Looking forward for the website so we can just check it. And Jacqueline, just wondering, while you, based on your research, the street layout is the smallest number, right? Do you think that this happened because it's not so many huge area for the street layout, or is it just because of it's people think that street layout is not really important?
I think, do you mind repeating the question?
About the street layout, when you mentioned about the weighing,
Oh,
yes, because it's
okay. It's because vegetation was the most important because we can achieve a lot by planting the right vegetation. So if we plant, for example, native vegetation, there are lots of studies out there that will actually eventually attract native wildlife into our cities. So native vegetation and the right vegetation is required to boost biodiversity. But obviously, you can't have that without permeable space. So that's why permeable area extent was likely the second most important. But street layout is still important. There are lots of studies that indicate that, for example, artificial light at night has really negative impacts on for example, invertebrate community composition or predator-prey behaviors. And the tool accounts for the weights so that at the end, the points achieved for the vegetation section contribute the most to the final score, but the street layout still contributes quite a bit.
Okay. And Jacqueline, we have two questions actually on our chat room. First, will this still be applicable in assessing urban green spaces? Yeah,
we can definitely connect. The tool is designed specifically for residential areas or subdivisions. But if you want to just have a look at a given green space, Garden Star is probably quite useful. So I'm definitely keen to connect with you and we can talk further. And there was another question, does this tool take into account high-rise buildings? Yes, so the tool actually has a lot of characteristics built into it. So if you had a high-rise building, in a subdivision, it does ask, are there green roofs, anywhere in the subdivision? But we are actually currently creating a tool specifically for buildings. So will be called the Nucient Biodiversity Factor Building. So hopefully that will be out towards the end of the year, beginning next year, specifically for high-rise buildings.
Okay, cool. Okay, thank you very much, Jacqueline. Well, this tool, yes, it's available in a website. Mr. Daun Sakambada.
Yes.
So we will proceed to our already Ms. Richelle Baria here. Hi.
I'll just screen share.
Yes. So Richelle is from College of Architecture, University of the Philippines, Diliman. And the title is Citizen Science in Analyzing Coastal Development Transformation, a Framework for Socio-Technological Infrastructure for Metro Legazpi. So 10 minutes is yours, Richelle.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm a PhD student and also an assistant professor in the UP College of Architecture. My name is Rochelle Arboria, and this research was under the mentorship of my research supervisor, Professor Gracie Ramos. Good afternoon. The global community has prioritized coastal management through citizen science initiatives, which have taken place since the 1980s. Initiatives like Reef Check, CSRRR, CoastMap, and Map Alive engage communities in collecting data on reef health, flood risks, coastal erosions, and hazards. While many countries have integrated technology into urban typologies, the Philippines is still in the developing stages. The programs for integrated technology and urban design are evident in highly urbanized cities and metropolises. Smart transportation in Cebu, smart cities infrastructure in Iloilo, Estera monitoring and habilitation in Intramuros. This research attempts to initiate STI integration through citizen science in the coast of Metro Legazpi. This research proposes a social-technological infrastructure, STI, model that leverages citizen science, CS, to enhance social inclusivity in coastal development planning, or CDP. So this is the rationale. It is a proposed model that inspires human centricity, invites the coalescence of transdisciplinarity, and attempts to address the social exclusion of older forms of constructs, and we call it social technological infrastructure. Branching off from the social technical system, STI generates solutions for macro scales and delves into tangible and non-tangible dimensions of urban design and urban planning. In a broad sense, it is the appropriate use of technology within the urban environment for social change. The study focuses on Metro Legazpi, a dynamic coastal city characterized by its stunning Mayon volcano, natural landscapes, rich cultural heritage, and resilient community, positioned at the crossroads of preserving its natural beauty, progressing with urban development, and adapting techniques for climate and disaster. Legazpi offers a unique laboratory for examining the interplay between human activities and the environment. The city's rapid urbanization is driven by tourism and economic growth and presents both opportunities and challenges for sustainable development. By investigating how CS can be integrated into CDP process, the research aims to understand public perceptions, identify potential CS initiatives, and contribute to the development of more inclusive and sustainable coastal development strategies. So among other things, Legazpi LGU, with their previous studies, predicted a 6-meter high sea level rise in the event of the tsunami. Nonetheless, its tourism office boasts of 516% increase in foreign tourists in 2023. So this brings me to my research question. How can social technological infrastructure through citizen science create relevant transformations of the coastal development in Legazpi, in Metro Legazpi? All right. The central question guiding the study is how can social technological infrastructure through citizen science analysis of coastal development create relevant transformation in Metro Legazpi? To answer this, we delve into sub-questions exploring residents' familiarity with citizen science, its contribution to addressing coastal challenges, indicators of relevance, and its roles in converging socio-technological infrastructure. Our objectives are to illustrate residents' familiarity with citizen science, determine its contributions to coastal development, indicate of its relevant applicability, and discuss integration into a social technological framework. I employ study, descriptive research, GIS visualization, these goals. The study area encompasses the Metro Legazpi coastal area context, making it an ideal ideal context to explore the potential of systems. We assume that the development plan and disaster risk reduction. Interestingly, a proposed development along the mangrove area in Barangay Puro adds a layer of complexity to the study. So this is the study side. So if you notice, the urbanization is converging in this area along the coast. It will be difficult for the development to go upward since Mayon volcano is at the north portion. Thus, the development is foreseen to be moving towards the southern part. Smart cities has captivated our imagination, promising a future where technology seamlessly integrates with urban life. However, with these digital landscapes of potential benefits, they often fall short in terms of inclusivity and human-centric designs. Thus, there should be a convergence in the fields of architecture, urban design, and urban planning, information technology, and communication. And they are evident in our smart cities. Although there are great strides in the transdisciplinarity of digital cities, these are criticized for lacking governmental leadership, lacking contextualization and customization, and the permeation of the digital divide. Thus, I am proposing electricity, and it's called social technological infrastructure. Citizen science is the inclusion of non-technical experts in data collection and in the different processes of research. When applied in an urban setting, such as a coastal development, citizen science contributes to an advanced, inclusive, convergence form of space-oriented constructs. This makes CS for CD a concrete example of STI. While CS has been receiving popularity in application in the last decade, there is a lack of CS applications specifically for CD. For research on CD using the CS method are found fragmented and lack specific qualities on their relevance, appropriateness, and applicability. So these are the indicators that I have identified. I will focus on 5 indicators: public engagement, data quality, collaborative partnerships, prioritizations of community needs, and timely implementation. So for its brief labeling, it's labeled as, or they're labeled as public, data, collaboration, priority, and time. These indicators will help us assess the relevance and applicability of citizen science in driving positive change in coastal areas. So I'll not discuss this, but these are my definition of terms and the significance of the study. Based on the review of related literature, in the early practices, there's a focus on engineering and infrastructure, where the infrastructure were prioritized like ports, harbors, with minimal consideration for the ecological and social impacts. Come the 21st century, there was a shift. There's a rise in environmental concerns and zoning regulations. Limited public participation, there's a focus on short-term gains, and there are data gaps and scientific uncertainties. So what are the benefits of integrating CS into CDP? According to these theorists, Theobald, Boney, Fritz, and Larson, They are able to give improved data collection, they enhance public engagement, they empower and create community ownership, and there's long-term monitoring and sustainability. So this is also the theoretical framework that infrastructure both explain the interdependence and reciprocity between technology and man. However, each differ in scope, in function, and in focus. While STI is okay for studies in urban planning and urban design, STI is a better fit, especially for macro scale planning and strategies. All right. So like what was mentioned, this is the conceptual framework. And here are the 5 indicators for relevance and applicability of citizen science for coastal development planning. This is my chart that shows the methodologies are the findings. In coastal development planning, we conducted a survey of 227 residents in Legazpi City. This research aimed to assess public awareness, attitudes, and behaviors related to coastal issues. Our respondents were primarily women, college educated, and employed in the public sector. The majority resided in Legazpi City and had a monthly household income between 15,000 and 50,000. Interestingly, while many lived in the city, a significant portion resided more than 5 kilometers from the coastline. Okay, so these are the other findings. They go to these specific places, the Sawangan Park, the skate park, and they go to these public spaces because they have good views and fresh air, and they are free and accessible. These are some of the tourist destinations: the Embarcadero, Sawangan Park Boulevard, the food park along Puro Beach, and the obelisk. So we also did correlation analysis, and the correlations that we found were there is a strong correlation between citizen science familiarity with willingness to invest and in perception of vulnerability. We also found that there are regressors for CS familiarity, and they are gender, residence location, and perception of vulnerability. So our survey explored the relationship between citizen science familiarity, social media use, and coastal awareness. We found that more women were familiar with citizen science compared to men. Additionally, those familiar with citizen science were more likely to be willing to invest in early warning systems. Social media played a role in coastal reporting, with younger respondents more likely to use it for this purpose. While not explicitly labeled as citizen science, the social media posts represent valuable data on coastal conditions. So here are some of the photos of the different actors and ecosystems that play an important role in coastal development planning. So these are the rehabilitation that are being done in the reefs by the ICRM Legazpi group. These are the different workshops that environmental planner Melody Azur and the planning office conduct regularly. They also have several activities. The City Environment and Natural Resource Office, they conduct all of these activities regularly. And some other photos that showcase the different destination in the coastal area. All right. So these are the other GDs and also spatial analysis. To visualize the spatial distribution of citizen science familiarity or tissue collection without necessarily recognizing it as citizen science. So here's a heat map that shows areas have more familiarity with citizen science and those that have less familiarity. Okay. So in conclusion, a proposed model that inspires human centricity invites the coalescence of transdisciplinarity and attempts to promote social inclusivity is called the social technological infrastructure. Citizen science in coastal development planning is one of its constructs. It is the participation of the public and research initiatives from data collection and analysis. So we also have the key points in the planning for environmental conservation and protection along coastal development areas, and these are public, data, collaboration, and prioritization and time. We also were able to come up with where and when the citizen science can come into play, what is the interface in the project life cycle and processes for coastal development planning. These are my references. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It seems that the concept of the citizenry known in this coastal development area. Is that true, Rizal?
They don't know that that's the term that is used for engaging the public, but then somehow when the residents there would voice out their concerns for different issues in the coastal region, they're already contributing to citizen science.
Okay, so probably you should try. Maybe you can try here in our city, in one of our city in Indonesia, just close to Indonesia. We can test.
Thank you, Ayon.
We can test for this concept. So, may I ask any question from our participants here in our forum? Very nice. Because Timmy already, it's time's almost up. Timmy, can I ask to Ricardo? Because probably we still have a little bit time. Mr. Ricardo?
Yes, feel free to ask questions we ended earlier.
Do you think that if we want to create this forestry for our home garden, what will be the best or minimum area to provide this home garden cities?
Yeah, for residential areas, it may be a small area, maybe 2 by 2 meters. And what is important is the plant species that you would put into the garden. And yeah. And in our case, for example, in the study that we did, it's just a very small area. Actually, it's just a small space in front of the house of the owner. Yet we were able to observe those birds, being recruited by the garden because of the kind of plants that they put into the garden. And somehow the plants had provided food and nectar, for example, for the olive back sunbird, and all other amenities that somehow these birds were able to get, from that garden.
Okay, very nice. So it's not about the area, but actually the plants that
The plants, yeah, that are being put into the area. In fact, in some other places, you can have the vertical garden, where you can put flowering plants, for example, to attract butterflies and all other insects, that could somehow provide that would have some ecological uses, for example, and some for nutritional purposes, so you can have some vegetables in the vertical garden. So it would definitely be on the kind of plants that would be put in place, in the garden.
Okay, thank you very much, Ricardo, for the presentation and also the explanation. I'm really have a good perspective, different perspective from all your presentation here. Thank you very much, Miss Kyukyutin, and then we have Mr. Ricardo, and then Jacqueline, and final we have our last presenter, Miss Rizal Rea. And we are going to have a little break. Yeah, Timmy. So I'm returning this first session to Timmy, and then we will proceed to our next presenter.
Okay, so Thank you, Dr. Dita. So we'll have a 5-minute break, and then after that we will view the entries for the Instagram reel competition, looking at conflict in the city between wilderness and our urban areas. Okay, so feel free to rest up, go to the bathroom, eat a bit, have your coffee for the next 5 minutes, and then we'll resume with our program. So see you guys in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And I will share the Instagram reel video. Is it seen?
Yes,
Okay.
Timmy.
Okay, let's begin.
Hey, what's up? Where are we? Where are we? We are at Rifle Range Nature Park in Singapore. Formerly a mining site, it has since been rewilded and is now part of a network of ecological corridors to connect wildlife, habitats, and people. It is also one of the few remaining places in the world where you can hear the beautiful birdsong of the straw-headed bulbul. Rifle Range is a conservation project that has immense value to Singapore residents as a place to unwind, relax, and exercise like I'm supposed to be doing now. Who are you? Who am I? My name's Joshua, and I am co-president of the Young Urbanists of Southeast Asia. Now, let me ask you a question, okay? Imagine your city rewilded. What would that look like? A design project, science-based policies, community programs in education. How would that make a better future for us, for our flora and fauna friends, and for the planet? In partnership with the ASEAN University Network on Ecological Education and Culture, or AUN-EEC, we are proud to launch the hashtag Rewilding the City Instagram Reels contest. In 1 minute, tell us how your city could look like rewilded. Be creative with how you tell your story. Live drawing, photo montage, animation, even a song and dance routine, as long as it's original content. Tag UC and AUN-EEC in your post and use these hashtags to qualify. What's that on your collar? Oh, this microphone? I don't know, I just wear it, like, totally not staged. Haha.
Okay, so that's an invitation to make content, to become a content creator, and make IG reels tagging the AUN-EEC and the UC, the Young Urbanists of Southeast Asia. So if you know someone or you yourself would like to take up the initiative and the challenge of becoming a content creator on Instagram, feel free to tag them and see if you can avail one of their prizes, right? Okay, so with that, we can resume with our presentations for the day. Dr. Dita, please take it away.
Thank you, Timmy. So what's the prize, Timmy? What will the prize for the winner, Timmy?
Oh,
For the Instagram.
it'll be uh, free. I think I'll just say it later because I think I'm reading the old
You
form, so I'll come back to later. Yeah, so we can just go with the we can go with the presentations right now.
Okay,
I'll
no
come back to
worries.
later.
Okay, let's go to our first presenter then. Okay, thank you very much, Timmy. So first, we have Miss Christina Evangelista. You may have your screen share now. And while you're preparing your screen, I would like to okay. The title is the Enhancing Urban Resilience and Sustainability, Embracing the Circular Economy Through Construction Innovations. And this paper is already collaborate with Carl Alisa Mariem and then Michelle Andrea Menes.
I cannot seem to share my screen. Limited sharing options.
Timmy, can you help Miss Evangelista?
Hi, Timmy. I cannot share my Canvas screen.
Okay, it's already shared now.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
yes. Embracing, yes.
Okay. Okay. Hi, good afternoon, Dr. Dita, esteemed lecturers, panelists, and participants. My name is Mac Evangelista, and I am the founder and the CEO at Container Living Philippines. Today, I will be discussing how we can enhance urban resilience and sustainability by embracing the circular economy through innovative construction practices. As cities around the world crisis driven by conventional construction methods. Let's start by looking at resource depletion. The rapid urbanization we are witnessing has created an insatiable demand for construction materials. Unfortunately, many of these materials like sand, metals, and minerals are non-renewable. We are depleting these resources at an alarming rate, which raises concerns about the long-term availability of essential construction inputs. Another major challenge is waste generation. The construction industry is a leading contributor to global solid waste, responsible for roughly 30% of the total. This means that a substantial portion of what we build eventually becomes waste, with much of it ending in our landfills, further straining our environment. These overflowing landfills not only occupy valuable land space, but also contribute to environmental degradation.
Miss Evangelista,
Ma'am Evangelista.
Yes?
Ma'am, can you I'm
try
not so sure
resharing?
because you're
can you stop sharing and then
can
reshare?
you stop sharing and then reshare again? Yes.
Because it's showing your video cam twice.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's see.
Still the same.
When you share, can you please wait. Can you please check the option to just show the window? Yeah, so stop sharing first. Yes, and then when you click share, there should be a option below the layouts.
No, there's no option.
There's not?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess with regarding time, time
Yeah,
management. We'll
just
just proceed
continue.
as is. Yeah, that's okay. Thank you. Thank
Can
you.
I share this? Is this okay?
It's just small,
It's
small screen. Yeah.
yeah, it's smaller. You can do what you were doing earlier. Yeah, okay, that's good. Okay, thank you.
Is this good? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So, lastly, the environmental impact of conventional construction is significant. The industry is responsible for 42% of global energy-related carbon dioxide emissions, which is a major driver of climate change. Beyond emissions, the extraction of raw materials and the continuous expansion of urban areas are leading to habitat destruction, reducing biodiversity and disrupting ecosystems. These are clear indicators that our current construction practices are unsustainable and need to change. In response to these challenges, there is an urgent need to rethink how we build our cities. We need resilient solutions that not only address the current problems, but also prepare us for future challenges. Urban resilience is crucial in this context. Our cities must be adaptable to changing environmental conditions, whether it is rising sea levels, more frequent natural disasters, or shifting urban demands. Disaster preparedness should be a key consideration in construction, ensuring that our buildings weather events without extreme damage. Sustainability is no longer just an option, it's a necessity. For our cities to thrive in the long term, we must embrace sustainable construction practices and ensuring that our development activities do not compromise the environment. Integrating circular economy principles into construction is one of the most effective ways to achieve this. By adopting closed loop systems where materials are reused, recycled, and repurposed, we can significantly reduce waste and conserve resources. Additionally, embracing innovative design approaches like prefabricated modular construction allows buildings to be easily adapted or deconstructed, minimizing waste and extending their life cycle. Let's delve deeper into the specific principles of the circular economy as they apply in the construction industry. These principles evolve around four main ideas: reuse, reduce, recycle, and redesign. First, reuse. In a circular economy, materials and components are designed to be reused multiple times. For instance, shipping containers, as we'll see in our case study, are repurposed into prefabricated modular building units, extending their life cycle and reducing the demand for new material efficiency and minimizing waste during construction. This involves designing buildings that use fewer functionality and durability. Third, recycle. At the end of a building's life, steel, glass, and certain types of concrete can be efficiently recycled and repurposed in new construction projects. Finally, redesign. Circular economy principles encourage us to rethink how we design buildings from ground up. This means creating transform how we think about urban living and development by repurposing materials, minimizing environmental impact, and creating sustainable, resilient structures. Founded on the belief that we can build better with less, Container Living specializes in converting used shipping containers into high quality, eco friendly residential and commercial spaces. This approach not only reduces waste, but also provides adaptable solutions for various urban needs. Our projects span across residential, commercial, and even industrial sectors. demonstrating the versatility and scalability of our prefabricated modular designs. By prioritizing sustainability at every step, from material sourcing to construction and operation, we ensure that our buildings are not only environmentally friendly, but also economically viable and socially responsible. The benefits of adopting circular economy principles in construction are far-reaching. Environmentally, these practices lead to significant reductions in waste and carbon emissions. For example, by repurposing shipping containers, we have reduced the need for new raw materials and minimized the energy-intensive processes associated with conventional construction. Economically, the circular economy offers cost savings by extending the life of materials and reducing the need for raw resource extraction. These savings can be passed on to clients, making sustainable building practices not only better for the planet, but also more affordable for businesses and homeowners. Moreover, buildings designed with circular economy principles are often more adaptable and resilient, offering long-term value. They require less maintenance, have lower operational costs due to energy efficiency, and can be easily modified to meet changing needs, which reduces the total cost of ownership over time. The circular economy's impact extends beyond environmental and economic benefits. It also has significant social implications. By creating adaptable modular living spaces, we are providing solutions that can be tailored to the needs of diverse communities. Our approach also supports local economies by sourcing materials locally and creating jobs in the refurbishment and construction process. This not only strengthens the community economically, but also fosters a sense of ownership and pride among the residents. Furthermore, by offering sustainable housing, we are addressing a critical need in the urban areas, particularly for the vulnerable populations. Our projects contribute to social equity, ensuring that everyone has access to high quality, resilient housing. Community engagement is another cornerstone of our projects. We involve the local government and the community in the development process, ensuring that the solutions we provide are aligned with their needs and aspirations. This collaborative approach not only enhances the project's success, but also strengthens the social fabric of the community. Looking ahead, the potential to scale these circular economy practices across more urban environments is immense. However, realizing this potential requires addressing several key challenges. Policy support is crucial as regulations need to incentivize sustainable practices and remove barriers to innovation. Public awareness and education are also essential. We need to continue raising awareness about the benefits of the circular economy and engage stakeholders across the construction industry in adopting these practices. At Container Living, we are committed to expanding our impact. We're exploring new markets and collaborations that will allow us to scale our solutions and drive the transition to more sustainable urban development. Our journey is just beginning, and we are excited to lead the way towards a future where cities are built to last sustainably. And as we conclude, I'd like to leave you with a call to action. The circular economy presents not just an opportunity, but a responsibility for all of us involved in urban development. Whether you are a builder, a policymaker, a designer, or a community leader, there's a role for you to play in fostering resilient and sustainable cities. By embracing circular economy principles, we can transform the way we build, live, and interact with our environment. So let's work together to create cities that are not only sustainable and resilient, but are also inclusive and equitable. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to your questions and thoughts on how we can collectively contribute to this vital information. I am now open to any questions you may have.
Thank you very much for your presentation. So is there any question from our audience here? While we are waiting, may I ask you one question, Miss Evangelista?
Yes.
So how urgent does the policy support needs to be conducted for this creating the circular economy and the innovation of the construction? Because
Very,
for
very
this,
urgent.
yeah, very urgent.
Very urgent.
Okay,
Like
and
yesterday.
so do you suggest that people probably have to think about how they develop their housing, or they have to create the sustainable housing for this innovation?
Yes, we should all have that foresight in designing, building, not just the houses, but the general infrastructure that we have right now.
Okay. Okay.
Thank
So
you.
thank you very much, Ms. Evangelista. Probably others will have some questions and probably have some times to type the question on our chat room. So just feel free to post the question. Okay, so we will continue to our next presenter. So I'm inviting Ms. Raisa Salvador. So she will presenting about addressing policy barriers to active transport in Metro Manila. And she's from the Political Science Department, Ateneo de Manila University. So you may share your screen now, Ms. Salvador.
Yeah, my co-presenter Elijah will share our screen, Dr. Lita.
Okay.
Okay, can you see our
Elijah.
screen?
Yes.
Thank you so much. So good afternoon to everyone who made time to join in this very, very relevant conference today. And thank you for giving us this opportunity to present our study. But before that, let me introduce ourselves, your authors and your presenters. So I am Raisa Salvador, a lecturer at the Ateneo de Manila University Political Science Department and a national analyst of the Asian Development Bank. My research partner here, engineer Elijah Ralph Gotian, is from the Resilient Cities Network. And we will be presenting a very, very pressing topic, which we both are advocating, entitled Addressing Policy Barriers to Active Transport in Metro Manila, Active Transport's Role in Urban Resilience. This paper presents, next slide please. Okay, this paper presents a qualitative study on the potential of active transportation to a city's transition towards sustainability, providing 1, stronger resilience to climate change, 2, safer and cheaper accessibility to low and medium income citizens, and 3, enhancing opportunities for community-centered development. The data we generated are from in-depth interviews, focus group discussions, online surveys, and research. The information gathered was analyzed through social analysis and functionalist theory lenses. Our hypothesis for this study is leaning towards active transport, such as cycling and walking, playing an important role in improving cities' climate, economy, and citizens' physical and mental health. As we progress in this discussion, we will provide you with more proof of this hypothesis. In the next slide, we provide you with some context of this study. So we are assuming that this information is not new to everyone in this conference. We all are aware that as a consequence of its quick expansion and demographic growth, accessibility in Metro Manila strongly relies on car use. As a result, this makes us one of the metropolitan areas in the world with worst traffic situation, with traffic congestion costing 3.5 billion pesos a day. Car dependency makes low and medium income users extremely vulnerable to fluctuations in international fuel prices, making the social divide more apparent. Traffic also increases GHG emissions, as a result, making the city more vulnerable to extreme weather conditions and other climate change effects. As an immediate result, yet again, and linking back to our social analysis, This increases the vulnerabilities and fragilities of low and medium income classes in the country, which, by the way, is more than half of our population. Given this, in slide 4, we beg to ask important questions for this study. First is, how can we improve the traffic conditions in the country? Further, we say that traffic is definitely not a criteria for growth and development. Instead, it says a lot about our priorities and mismanagement of resources, including possibilities of corruption. But that we won't dive in this paper. Minimizing traffic congestion in the city can minimize economic loss as well. Moreover, in a more sensible way, it can also maximize low and medium income households' gains. The paper also highlights inclusivity and sustainability concerns, such as number 1, how can we cater to the needs of the riding public better? And number 2, how can we introduce active transportation as an alternative and safe form of transportation to the masses? And lastly, how can the government make this happen for us? These are the questions that guided this study. And to be honest, most are yet to be answered in detail. Next slide, please. The next slide shows us existing government policies that support this study. We are able to identify 4 major policies to enable a safer and more convenient environment for active transportation users. I won't dive into to each of these policies, but I would just want to highlight one common thing in these 4 policies. It is the high priority of pedestrians and cyclists in the hierarchy of road users. And given that these are 4 policies with different time frames and different authors, we all see that there should be prioritization of pedestrians and cyclists. So it's a very common among these 4 policies. Realistically, though, we don't feel that happening just yet, at least in Metro Manila. My research partner, Engineer Gotian, will later show us more proof to this observation. For the meantime, we need to establish that there are existing mandates, particularly by the government through its national agencies, to make this happen. Meaning, it's not something new, right? And it's just about prioritizing and putting more resources to active transportation in the Metro Manila. Next slide, please. In the next slide, we are highlighting 3 government agencies: the MMDA, Metro Manila Development Authority, Department of Transportation, and the Department of Public Works and Highways. They are the main contributors of enabling the success of active transportation in the metro. And yes, they are mandated by law to promote the safe, convenient, and reliable movement of people in Metro Manila. However, we identified a few reasons why gaps still exist. I will pass the floor on to Engineer Gotian to further discuss where we are now and why are we seemingly stuck in this traffic situation in Metro Manila. Eli, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Raisa. Can everyone hear me well?
Yes,
All right.
we can hear you clearly.
Thank you. So let me just proceed first from the current conditions. So this is basically the political stand and some current data on where our national agencies and our different communities stand on active transport. So to go to the left side of the scale first, we would like to show where the Metro Manila Development Authority or the MMDA's response to increasing the bike lanes on our major thoroughfares in Metro Manila. So they basically, when advocates propose for a wider bike lane, they mentioned that why would we want to put another bike lane? These are gonna be hindrances to car showrooms and garages that are found along along EDSA or one of our main thoroughfares. They also mentioned that there are only 1,586 cyclists that traverse the road, although they did retracted statement and mentioned that this survey was done for just one day along one intersection during a typhoon as well. But then they are still pushing for this number uh, to hinder the development of better cycling and walking facilities along our major thoroughfares. Just to counter that argument as well, the Institute of Climate and Sustainable Cities did a recent bike count that showed that there were almost 8,000 cyclists along that major thoroughfare. So you could see the stark contrast between the two and how active transport is being uh, compared to as well. Uh, just to add as well that the social weather station also showed that during the cycling household survey that there are 1 out of 3 cycling households in the country. So there was an increase from 2022 to 2023 from 29% to 36%. So we could see that the amount of cyclists uh, in the Philippines are increasing year by year. So the the policies, the infrastructure must increase as well. So comparing it to the car, there is a 4-to-1 ratio of bicycle to car ownership. So in terms of prioritization, we could see that there are more citizens or there are more Filipinos who own bicycles compared to cars, the na yet some national agencies and budgets are still leaning towards building more roads for vehicles instead. To add, DOTR's latest stance on active transport, they continually want to promote uh, modes such as cycling and walking, especially because of the National Transport Policy and the Philippine Development Plan, as well as the Department of Health, stating that there are lots of health benefits into active transport as well. So you have that contrast between national agencies to other national agencies on how they regard active transportation. Just to show some conditions that we have here, the infrastructure that you see to the left side are mainly from national roads covered by the MMDA and DPWH, also, as well as some LGUs that lack the capacity to implement active transport facilities as basic as sidewalks. And then to the right side, you could see that there are a lot of uh, cases of road crashes that has occurred throughout the many years, mainly involving our youth or our most vulnerable population. So the conditions right now of active transport and road safety are I would like to say, at its lowest at this very moment. But then hopefully it will proceed and increase in a positive way later on. To show this is basically the work of some of our national agencies, but we have been doing well in some others. So as you can see in the current conditions of these other areas, so you have one of our roads in ADB Avenue, which shows uh, a well-designed bike lane. It could be better, but then a lot better than the previous one. In Intramuros, which is our walled city, a very historical area of the city of Manila that has pedestrianized their streets. Uh, we have in Visayas region, the Iloilo Esplanade. And then currently right now in another LGU in Quezon City, they have currently set up a raised bike lane along the Quezon City circle. So there are good practices as well as there are bad practices. But then with that, this brings us to why are we not moving? What are the bottlenecks that we have right now? So number one would be the low belief in the benefits of active transport, especially from high-level officials in key agencies. And as you may know, uh, the progression of these infrastructure and policies are highly dependent on them. Local governments also do not have the capacity, both the skills, staff, and a dedicated office. Usually, most of our local government units only have a traffic office. They do not have a transport office. So the lack of staff and skill to implement good practices are lacking in the local cities right now. There is certainly a lack of communication between national local offices on short, medium, and long-term plans, as you may seen in the previous images. And lastly is the lack of empathy. most of our high-level officials, most of people that are making decisions, they do not ride public transport. They do not bike as well around our city. They are being uh, chauffeured in their private vehicles from one place to another. And we think that the lack of empathy through them is a big factor in why they cannot relate to the gaps that there are right now in our infrastructure. Okay, thank you. So moving on, we just want to show some of the good practices and some of the bases that we have internationally going into our paper. So as Raisa mentioned, climate resilience, safe and inclusive transportation, and community-centered development are three of the main benefits of active transportation, and we'll just go through it one by one fairly quickly. For climate resilience, you have uh, cities such as Singapore and Paris that have been really doing well. As you can see at the background, Paris has turned the highway beside the Seine River into a pedestrianized or an active transport corridor that is also used as a public space for people to stay in and people to traverse to get to where they want to go. And then And according to various studies, cycling can actually reduce your CO2 emissions by up to 80%, your daily CO2 emissions by up to 80%, especially if you're using a car and you transport using a bike. And they want to increase this bike lanes and these pedestrians even further. Next would be safe and inclusive transportation. We have to always mention the Netherlands when it comes to the best practices of cycling. And the Netherlands have more than 2 million people living with disabilities, and intense collaboration between municipalities, public transport policy makers, public transport companies, and people with disability has been done to create and implement policies to cater to them, as well as emergency vehicles have faster response times when there are bike lanes because they use these as emergency lanes as well. And in terms of road safety, the more bike lanes and sidewalks we have makes vehicle lanes narrower. And what that does is that it promotes a slower speed of vehicles, which reduces the amount of road crashes around the area. And then lastly, community-centered development. What we forget is that our streets are actually public spaces as well. We might not have a lot of parks in the area or a lot of public spaces, but then our streets are public spaces and they need to be reclaimed into thriving and pro-environment spaces that would help people move from one place to another, but as well for people to stay in as well. And Barcelona does this well with their super blocks concept. Uh, they have a strategic plan for the whole city that will turn one out of three streets into green streets by 2030. And as you can see, the community thriving in the background. You have kids playing and you have adults talking to one another. And that would certainly help any community, especially here in the Philippines. So I'd like to turn it back to Raisa for the rest of the presentation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Eli, and thank you so much. The chat box is buzzing, so I'm enjoying answering. So again, these are the good practices in other countries and the current conditions in our country as well. And I'm sure the audience are also keen to know if these can be replicated in the Philippines. So in our study, we also found a lot of good practices here in the Philippines, which can be replicated in Metro Manila. And in this slide, we are presenting a few examples to prove that promoting active and low carbon forms of public transport is not only for the developed nations. In the Philippines, we have good examples in Metro Manila and some outside. Eli mentioned a few, but for the sake of this conversation, I would want to highlight Makati and Baguio City. Both Makati and Baguio City are highly urbanized cities and congested cities as well. Both started with the problem of traffic congestion, traffic and human congestion, and pollution in their respective localities. But eventually, they envisioned solutions which are low carbon in nature. In Makati, for instance, we might know of their vision of the 15-minute city, which seeks to bring residents to basic services within 15 minutes by walking, cycling, or public transportation. This is still obviously a work in progress, but because of the collaboration of the government and private firms, infrastructures were built to ensure that pedestrians and cyclists alike can safely move within the city. Some of you might have seen Makati recently, and you can probably attest that it is already a walkable city. Our second example is Baguio City, one which is highly polluted some decades ago. It's also highly dense and overcrowded because of course, tourists and students in UV Baguio. But acknowledging this problem, the LGU, CSOs, and other organizations came together to salvage and transform the city. Today, Baguio has reduced congestions and GHG emissions and is already on its way to becoming a smart city, incorporating low carbon forms of public transport and increased walkability. There is still a lot of work to be done, obviously, in Baguio City, but because the government has been keen in investing infrastructure for traffic management and green technologies, they are on the way to becoming walkable and cleaner city. Next slide, please. To conclude,
Ma'am Raisa, please wrap it
yes.
up in 1 minute.
Yeah. We're in concluding slide already, Timmy. Thank you. To conclude, the analysis revealed that active transport plays a key role in improving the city's climate, economy, and its citizens' physical and mental health. The findings suggest, however, that this can only be achieved through a holistic process aligning infrastructure, policy, and community engagement. While transformation is slow, like any other project, there is a need to ensure government and citizens' ownership of policies and implementation mechanisms. Private sector also plays an equal important role in facilitating investments in infrastructure. And last slide, to sum this study up, we found out that like any other advocacy related to preservation, this is a shared responsibility. And we are speaking in front of you today to let you know that you are part of this transformation with the hope that we are all in this together. Thank you so much and have a good afternoon.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It's quite long, but it's very interesting to have how the recommendation for the barriers, how you actually handle the barriers. Just one question probably. So there might be some question about the climate and also the temperature in Manila. Why the people probably do not go to active transport because of humidity and hot climate? Probably one of the factors. So what do you think about those factors?
But Doc Dita, you should also take into consideration that Singapore is much more humid and much more. It's hot, humid, and in the afternoon it rains. No, so I don't think that's one barrier. The solution that we're presenting here is just investment on infrastructure and policies, of course. I think Gina here is mentioning about her biking to work, but then she noticed that there are buses, there are motorcycles in the bus lane. I think that's also one question of regulation, right? So with proper regulation, like probably the Singapore example, it could work. We need to get more proof to that, but it could work.
Okay, or just like a flash mob, probably just send probably 100 people goes to bike, and then people probably might continue to bike.
That's true, Doc Dita, that's true.
Okay.
We are hoping.
Yes. So since our time is limited, can we proceed to our final presenter? So I will invite Mr. Aaron Lusanta to prepare the slideshow.
Hello, good afternoon. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, we can see and we can hear you.
Okay. So may I start now?
Yes, you can start.
Okay. So thank you po and good afternoon everyone. I am Aaron Polusanta. I am a philosophy instructor from UPLB and I just currently finished my master's from University of the Philippines, Diliman. And this presentation is actually a part of my thesis. It's just a small chapter that I'm trying to expand. So I will go to that later on. So my presentation is on how eco is urban ecotourism. So this tries to address the question how we use the term eco on a daily basis. Like we have eco straws, eco products, and last time on the chat box I used the term eco-friendly jeepneys. So how do we really should we really use the term eco? Where in this case, naman, on the case of tourism, especially on urban tourism, since we're talking about cities. So before I proceed, we should note that when we talk about eco-friendliness or environmental impacts, these are not just merely scientific facts that we are trying to deliver. These are also, at this very core, philosophical questions. Thus, we need to implant as well an analysis using the perspective of ethics. So that is why I see the relevance of discussing eco-friendly cities in light of philosophical discourse. So from there, in an attempt to transform cities into more livable spaces, local efforts push forth with either preserving its prevailing greeneries or sometimes they construct artificial landscape, just to simply say that those places are trying to transform to being eco-friendly. With this at hand, ecotourism situated at the heart of urban spaces have long been a burgeoning trend in city planning. So they're just simply trying to mimic or trying to attempt to bring back nature in cities as opposed to the ecotourism that we see on rural places on the other side. Thus, this paper will explore how the ethical evaluation of urban ecotourism as to how it adheres to the fundamental ecological notions of Aldo Leopold. Although we can make use of several perspectives in philosophy and in ethics to address what we actually mean by eco-friendliness or environmental ethics, I'm trying to make use of the framework of Aldo Leopold because he is one of the very first pioneers of ecological ethics or even the whole literature of environmental ethics dating back from the 1880s. Okay. So what are Aldo Leopold's positions on ecological ethics? So these first two concepts are attributed to him. So the community concept and the land pyramid, which are, I would just simply refer to as the ecological premises. So these are found on his work, A Sound County Almanac, written in 1949. So firstly, Aldo Leopold tried to invert the somewhat pyramid scheme of evaluation of the things around us. So instead of saying that we humans are more superior towards plants and animals and the whole environment, he's trying to say that in an ecological community, all of us should be treated as equal with having equal worth and considerations. Thus, from page 203 to 204, he said that the individual is a member of a community of interdependent parts. His intrinsic prompts him to compete for his place in the community, but his ethics prompt him also to cooperate. So, in this premise, he's trying to say that our treatment of plants and animals should be also the same as how we treat our fellow humans in a given community, wherein there should be no one we consider to be above or below of us. And in support of this, since he's making use of brute sciences in his position, he said that the pyramid, or what he calls the land pyramid, is a tangle of chains so complex as to seem disorderly, yet the stability of the system proves it to be a highly organized structure. Its functioning depends on the cooperation and competition of its diverse parts. So he acknowledges the fact that all of the members of this community should interact with each other and help each other. None of them should be separated or somewhat isolated from that said community, which is somewhat a very common problem that we see in urban places, especially, of course, in the practice of ecotourism, which I will go on later. So another way of expanding his notion of the community concept, he also adds that an ecocentric approach in ethics is said to be concerned not only with evolutionary, ecological, physical, and cosmological functions of the evolving post-modern scientific world, it also integrates indigenous and traditional worldviews. So this came from John Baird Callicott, another philosopher who also pioneers in expanding the works of Leopold. So if you're going to, we recall the second keynote speaker before, they also introduced the fact that we should also integrate indigenous cultures and beliefs that exist in a particular community and integrate that with nature for us to say that it is actually eco-friendly, those practices and the existence of a particular community. So with this at hand, how do we now give valuation towards the things around us? And also, when it comes to ethical evaluation, there's also this aspect of aesthetic evaluation, which is some oftentimes the most primary goal when it comes to promoting tourism. So when it comes to ethical evaluation, Aldo Leopold said that when one of these non-economic categories is threatened, and if we happen to love it, we invent subterfuges to give it economic importance. The evidence had to be economic in order to be valid, and those things that we value should continue as a matter of biotic right, regardless of the presence or absence of economic advantage to us, which is what he'll observe on the downside that when we try to value things around us, they're only considered valuable if they have economic value. How about those things that do not really have economic value or we should not bestow any economic value at all? So how do we evaluate those things in return? Additionally, when it comes to aesthetic valuation, Leopold said that the beauty of neglected natural environment emphasizes less on the visible, scenic aspect of nature and more on the conceptual diversity, complexity, species rarity, species interactions, nativity, phylogenetic antiquity, the aspect of nature revealed by evolutionary and ecological natural history. So, based upon his position, for us to appreciate more the value of nature when it comes to aesthetics, which is the primary core of tourism, we should also learn to respect the very occurrences or the processes in nature as to not to disturb them, which is posing quite a challenge in, of course, in the concept of ecotourism, especially in an urban setting. So what is now ecotourism? So the main purpose of ecotourism in general is to create eco-friendly spots in rural and urban places with the aim to promote tourism, culture, commerce alongside the preservation and conservation of nature. And if we're going to specify this even more, under urban ecotourism, on the other hand, it fuses the nature with the concrete. Either, as what I've said before, you're trying to preserve the already existing nature, which is sometimes on the verge of extinction in that place, or you're constructing an artificial nature or artificial ecological community in that particular place. So to focus these examples in Metro Manila, where I am residing, we have several examples of some candidates of what we can consider as ecotourist spots, although some of these are quite debatable if they can actually be considered as ecotourist spots. So first on this list is La Mesa Eco Park because the name itself bears an eco labeling, so we can refer to that as an eco park. We also have Marikina River Park, which is where I came from, Marikina City, and some other places that are somewhat labeled as ecotourist spots around the metro. But to limit this discussion, I will just focus on La Mesa Eco Park and Marikina River Park. So La Mesa Eco Park is a reservoir of water at the north of NCR, and it is a protected place wherein we get most of our sources of water. And Marikina River naman is as seen on here on the right. So Marikina River is a river that traverses the city of Marikina in vertically. And one interesting feature of Marikina River is along its side is the preservation of the river itself and the existence of plants and other trees and sometimes a very small existence of biodiversity. And they are located just around that river. Although interesting to see on the Marikina River is its shape that it curves right here. Can you see my cursor ba? Can you see my cursor on the screen? So one interesting factor about this Marikina River is that since the very site of the Marikina River has been concretized because they wanted to introduce some pathways for people to enjoy that site, it's quite impossible now for Marikina River to develop and also to expand itself to fulfill its natural course in its development or in its evolution. So an interesting fact about the Marikina River is sadly we are conducting this online because if you're to conduct this face-to-face, Ateneo de Manila is actually situated just near the Marikina River. So it's quite located here. So if we have some time, we could actually visit that place, and it's a really good eco-friendly site. Although sadly, just recently, a devastating occurrence happened in Marikina, which is brought by the typhoon Awinia or Agohon, which was happened May 2024. So because of that, so lots of plants and other landmarks around Marikina River were actually submerged in this flooding. So, for example, here, which is located around here in Marikina River, and this one is actually outside of our house, located somewhere north part of the Marikina City. So, just to wrap up all of this, so another practice in Marikina, or a very famous landmark that we have, is what we call the Marikina River Park Dome, which was once covered with bougainvillea. So it's always covered with flowers during its peak season. And in some parts of Marikina City, we also have some benches covered with bougainvillea domes just to cover those shaded parts on some street benches. Although this photo is from 2014, you can see the dome here covered with bougainvillea. And this updated version, which is year 2024, those projects were discontinued and they no longer exist. So these are just some humble attempts of Marikina City to promote ecotourist places and eco-friendly attempts to introduce some attempts to integrate nature within an urban setting. Okay, so just to wrap up everything, as what I mentioned before, this is just a part of my thesis that I defended last month during my master's defense. So the very core of that question is, how do we actually, or how should we actually use the term eco when it comes to promoting these eco-friendly sites or eco-friendly tourism, etc. So it opens up several questions regarding, firstly, how truly homely or eco is actually ecotourism. If we're going to stick to the core of ecotourism or ecological ethics in itself, that it should integrate all of those members of the community in a single place. So other questions also generate, such as how ecotourism captures immersion and inclusivity to, of course, recognize all of the members of that community, questions on the valuation of the things around us, and of course, a more fundamental question that is directed to urban cities: how could artificially fashioned urban ecotourist spots be regarded as genuine ecological communities? Because from the name itself, these are artificially crafted places that seem to mimic nature, but are they actually considered to be natural or ecological if they are just simply artificially crafted for the sake of simply looking like ecological? Okay. So lastly, to end this is my last slide. So key takeaway from Aldo Leopold's philosophy is he said that a thing is right, anything that we do or we decide is right when it tends to preserve the integrity, stability, and beauty of the biotic community. And it is wrong when it tends to otherwise. So he's hoping that all of our actions, our policies, and even our mode of educating the public when it comes to ecological consciousness should adhere to this way of preserving and, of course, conserving our ecological communities. Okay, so that is all. These are my main references for my presentation. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Aaron. It seems that Gina really loved La Mesa Eco Park. Gina, you raise for the your love to La Mesa Eco Park. Do you have any questions or comments regarding this eco park? So, Aaron, so it seems that we still have some questions about how eco is this ecotourism, this eco park. Is it really eco or it's just labeled?
Yes, thank you for that question. So for these two examples that I gave, these actually correspond to naturally occurring ecological sites versus artificial ones, because La Mesa Eco Park is partly a virgin forest, so a huge part of that reservoir is actually not accessible to the public. So we can actually say that it actually truly adheres to that label of being an ecotourist spot. Whereas Marikina River Park, most of the plants planted around this riverside are actually just planted for the sake of a project to say that it is an eco-friendly place. And because of the very rampant flooding, which is on this photo, all of those plants are always washed off and then are replanted and replaced eventually by some other plants. Although the most common surviving plants around this riverside are actually bamboos and some local trees like Nara. Although on sometimes some locals will actually utilize this place just to for agricultural purposes. Sometimes when I walk around here, some local farmers will plant some corn or some other crops along those riversides. Okay, so yeah, to answer that question, ma'am.
Yes, indeed.
Wait,
Thank you
going
very
back.
much.
Yeah, so Willamette Eco Park is actually truly adheres to that eco labeling in its name. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. And so Aaron is our final presenter. Timmy, can I resume this session and return this back to you again?
Oh, actually, we'll be showing the video for the conference synthesis here.
Okay, then.
So after that, we can end it. Oh, but to answer the question earlier about the Instagram Reel competition, the prizes are to follow as an announcement, but be assured there will be prizes. So just stay tuned, following the AUN-EEC channels and the UC channel for what those prizes would be. Very exciting things. Okay, so let's move on to our. So thank you everyone who presented
Thank you very
today.
much for all the presenters here. Very
Yeah.
insightful.
So we can move on to our conference synthesis. Our closing remarks by our own Dr. Emmanuel D. Delocado, the Executive Director of the AUN-EEC and the Director of the Ateneo Institute of Sustainability. Okay. Is the video seen?
Not yet. Probably when you already pressed the play button.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you found our conference enjoyable and insightful. On behalf of the Secretariat of this conference, I would like to thank you for joining us in our 5th AUN-EEC Conference on Ecological Education and Culture. In this 5th conference, the theme was Rewilding the City. In the plenary session this morning, our moderator, Dr. Nikki Carcy Cruz, shared that the banner theme of AUN-EEC this year is urban sustainability. Earlier this year, in our webinar, we learned about the tensions in the city, namely cultural preservation versus modernity, environmental protection versus economic progress. Despite these tensions, there are intentions to live sustainably in and with the city. We hope that through the keynote lectures this morning, you had some appreciation of how environment and culture can continue to thrive in the city. We thank Dr. Maxine and Dr. Rohaya for being champions of the different but interrelated facets of urban sustainability. The panel discussion provided us a glimpse of the different champions, contexts, and challenges in mainstreaming sustainability in Southeast Asian cities. We learned some nuances of the solutions being presented, and we learned that rewilding the city is not just about greening the city. It is about building systems and structures that would enable practices to contribute to building a culture of sustainability. Meanwhile, the session this afternoon caters to your own personal interests. Through the 4 sessions, we hope that you had some appreciation of how the diversity of ways on how we, individuals from different fields, ranging from natural science to education, humanities to engineering, and everything in between, can contribute to rewilding the city. Special thanks to Dr. Ayomi Dita Rarasati for moderating the session, and to Mr. Timmy Romero and Ms. April Urbano for providing technical support for the session. As we end this conference, we hope to see you in our upcoming events. I invite everyone to participate in our Instagram Reels competition, which was launched earlier, and in our city planning workshop competition happening later this year. Also, to our presenting authors, you may opt to submit your full paper of the presentation so that we can consider it for publication in the special issue of CSID Journal of Infrastructure Development. CSID GID is abstracted and indexed in the OAJ, Crossref, Garuda, WorldCat, Cinta, and Scilit. You may submit your papers until the end of September. The Secretariat will also send you an email regarding this after the conference. Before we end, I would like to request you to evaluate the conference by clicking the link on the chat or by scanning the QR code, which will be flashed shortly. Once again, thank you for joining us today and enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Thank
Okay.
you, everyone.
Oh, before we leave, can we request that we have uh, a picture taking for everyone here in the session, just so we have something to commemorate for the event. So I ask everyone to open their cameras just real quick. So I see we are, let's see, how many are we? We're 28 participants, so that's 2 slides. Okay, so just bear with me. So can I request everyone to open their cameras for the photo taking?
And show
Hi,
your
everyone.
big smile.
Yeah, show your big smile in support of rewilding the cities, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so everyone ready? I'll take a photo now. So 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay, that's first page. Keep that smiles up. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, thank you, everyone. So as presented, as Sir Eman said earlier, Doc Eman said earlier, we thank you for your time here, and we hope that you can please check out the evaluation form to help us improve for our future conferences and events. So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for your
Thank
participation.
you.
Thank you.
See you in the next future meeting. Bye-bye.
And don't forget, if you're interested to upload your papers, just reach
Yeah.
out. Wow. For the presenters here today. Thank you. Also, for those who are still here, the other breakout rooms are still ongoing. So if you want to catch up to one of their sessions, please feel free to attend them. Okay, thank you.